can't say it enough times. I must preserve the gangster in my bloodline. I be on the front lines, mine like an archive. Sharp knife, dark skies, $500,000 on this hard drive. Penthouse, parkside, Mo don't even count the bodies he caught in apartheid.
Yeah, what's up, black people? Welcome to another unlawful arrest prevention video. On this channel, we analyze crowdsourced videos of traffic stops and arrests in order to educate citizens on the ways that law enforcement officers may break legal protocol. Watching videos of traffic stops and arrests helps us see the tactics and tricks that cops most often use to execute the unlawful arrest of a black person. By understanding their strategies, we can develop our own, which allow us to punish them financially later by bringing civil rights lawsuits and winning large payouts. In part 1, we analyzed footage of the traffic stop that got Officer Rock Contardi fired from his job and charged with sexual battery and cocaine possession. If you haven't watched that video, watch part 1 first. In part 2, we are going to listen to the interview Internal Affairs conducts with The Rock as part of their investigation into the complaint filed by the victim from the traffic stop in part 1. Just so you're prepared for what's to come, The Rock's interview follows a pretty simple pattern. The Rock makes a quasi-admission of guilt and then tells a blatant lie, followed by a quasi-admission of guilt, followed by another blatant lie, and so on. The officers who work in the Cocoa Police Department Internal Affairs Unit try to give Rock every out and ample opportunities to tell his side of the story. The Internal Affairs Unit finally loses all patience with The Rock when they realize he hasn't been doing any police work and that if he gets in front of anyone else talking that crazy stuff, they may lose their jobs too.
While investigating the allegations stemming from this particular traffic stop, Cocoa Police Internal Affairs found numerous other complaints and allegations filed against The Rock, including incidents of him breaking protocol such as not properly turning on his body camera during stops. As you will also hear, The Rock often kept drugs that he found during illegal searches for himself and stored them in his patrol car or at his house, making no report of the drugs, and ultimately never brought them to the police station to be reported as evidence. In the end, The Rock was fired as a result of this incident, but he resigned before his official termination.
We are going to listen to and discuss the lengthy and revealing interview between Rock Contardi and Internal Affairs so you can hear how The Rock attempts to justify his illegal and psychotic behavior from part 1. I want you to hear how The Rock responds when he is confronted with evidence against him. The Rock's response should be revealing to you. This is how cops talk to each other in private. Rock's feelings towards black people and his obvious lack of understanding of how the law works, despite being an officer of it, is representative of how most cops like him think. Knowing how corrupt, sneaky, racist police think is an important part of understanding why we advocate the strategic and safe manner of dealing with them that we do. Even Internal Affairs cannot believe some of the things that The Rock is saying during the interview, and decide pretty quickly that he can't think and is unfit to be a cop.
Before we get into the video, here are the disclaimers. 1. I'm not an attorney. Please contact an attorney if you have an urgent legal matter. If you need help finding an attorney in your area, please submit a claim through unlawfularrestprevention.org and we'll do our best to help you find representation. 2. Unlawful arrest prevention and any videos associated with it are not for the criminally minded and are intended to help ensure legal recourse for citizens who become the victims of a civil rights violation. 3. Never under any circumstance during the course of a traffic stop or an unlawful arrest, tell a police officer that you plan to sue him.
May 20th. I got a new watch, so 2019. Time is 3:24 p.m. This is regards to IA 19-10-IA. Present in the room is Officer Rock Contardi, along with his representation, Al Betcha from PBA. Rock, will you raise your right hand? Do you swear the statement you just provided, or you will provide, is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Prior to going on tape, I had you read and sign your Garrity warning. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions regarding that?
No, sir.
You also had an opportunity to go through all the evidence that I have here?
Yes.
You have any questions for that?
No.
Okay. All right, Rock. This isn't.
When you get to a specific issue, please reference the documentation that you provided us so that he can be clear about his answer.
Okay. On March 12, 2019, a Marvin Passawi responded to the police department and spoke to Sergeant Moon in regards to a traffic stop involving you, Officer Rhodes, and Officer Baez. Are you familiar with that stop?
I am.
All right, his allegation is that he was stopped for the tint, and that he was told that the car smelled like marijuana, and he was handcuffed, pulled from the vehicle, and you searched him with gloves on, but stuck your finger in his rectum, and also searched down his pants looking for any type of narcotics, which evidently you did not find any. Is that, you aware of his complaint?
I am aware of the
Okay, can you tell me, in your words, your involvement with the traffic stop?
I responded to back up Officer Rose on a traffic stop. During the course of the investigation, Officer Rose notified me that the car smelled like marijuana, and that was upon my initial arrival. Upon my contact with the driver, Mr. Marvin, I did detect a strong odor, the strong distinct odor of marijuana emitting from inside the vehicle. I inquired to Mr. Marvin if there was anything illegal inside the vehicle, such as drugs, and he informed me there was not. I asked him to step out of the vehicle, at which time I conducted a pat-down of his pockets, exterior portion. Mr. Marvin began to disobey my commands of keeping his hands on the vehicle. Became fidgety. For officer safety purposes, I didn't know what Mr. Marvin's, what his actions might have been. So for officer safety purposes, I detained him with handcuffs.
Okay, well, that's a lie. In part one, we saw that the victim, though understandably frustrated and upset, kept his cool throughout the entire invasive encounter. The Rock says that he was fidgety, but I think we can all agree that we would also be fidgety if the Rock were digging through our pants for drugs that didn't exist.
In order to properly conduct a pat-down of his clothing, at which point I then, nothing was found inside outside his pockets or anything. I brought him back to my vehicle, at which time Officer Baez stayed present with him, and at which time Officer Rose and I began a search of the vehicle for the marijuana that we were smelling.
Okay, so when you're searching him, when you first take him out of the car, he basically says you're touching his dick, you're looking in his dick, and that's why he's flinching. Did you conduct a search under his, manipulate his scrotum area outside the pants?
There was no manipulation. I just used my hands, went inside his pockets, did not touch any private area at the time.
That's a lie. In part one, we all saw that the Rock was not willing to accept the reality that there simply wasn't any weed. At several moments, the Rock had his hands in the victim's drawers and was moving his penis around to, as he puts it, try and find the weed.
Because I was still, unaware where the possible drugs could have been, whether they were on him, concealed, or they were inside the vehicle. He was very close to the vehicle, and so I was smelling the marijuana, so I wasn't sure if it was coming from him or the vehicle, which is why I separated him from the vehicle.
Okay. Now, your body cam footage, when it comes on, you're well into the search. How come, per policy, you didn't have your body cam on prior to arriving?
Sometimes I forget to turn it on right away.
Okay.
Or, as we now know, when you smell weed, you don't want anyone else to see what you do first.
So you search the vehicle, and during the search, you're discussing with Officer Rhodes about whether he could have put it down his pants. You believe it was down his pants, and you don't want to have to go in and get it. What were you referring to?
It's been my experience through the contact that I've had in the past encounters with several subjects. A lot of the time, the drugs and the illegal narcotics are not going to be in plain view. When you go up to a car and you smell weed, 9 times out of 10 they're not going to say, here officer, here's the drugs. It takes investigation, and you have to go through, it's a process. Mm-hmm. So Officer Rhodes and I were just conversating about where the drugs could possibly be. Because of how he acted when I went to do that pat down and that preliminary search, indicated to me that there may be something hidden in there, because when I did go around his pockets, he began to flinch, which is why I had detained him. And past experiences, when people become fidgety like that and agitated and aggressive, a lot of the time they are hiding something. And that was my interpretation of it, that he was hiding something. And I was just confirming with Officer Rose that he also did smell the marijuana, and it was a possibility that it was on him, and it may not have been in the car. It was a strong possibility that was my interpretation, that through my experiences as a cop here in the Cocoa Police Department, the past 5 years, people that use drugs, people that know the streets and have contact with police and have arrest records like this guy, they know where to hide it, where we're not going to go.
Well, there's a reason why they hide it there.
Because most of the time we're not going to go there.
Well, most of the time you can't go there.
And most of the time we don't go there.
Right. So that's why they hide it there. So based on what you have here, what makes you go to the next level at this point?
The next level, based on my experiences in the past, enhanced it from the search of the car to the search of his pockets to checking underneath the undergarments.
Okay.
And then doing the hand sweep of the blade, using the blade of your hand to do the buttocks. Based on my experiences, if they're going to hide it there, that's how you would check. That's how you would check with the blade of your hand underneath the pants and the undergarments, because it'll be tucked. It'll be tucked in an area that you're not going to feel through just a search. You're not going to feel it there. It's going to be tucked. It's going to be tucked there. And you're going to you kind of got to go a little bit in there, and you got to extend a little bit just to make sure it's not there. I did not grope, fondle, or anything like that. It was.
Well, you went in there a little bit further than a little bit. I mean, you can physically see you moving his penis to the side to get to the other side.
This is the point in the interview when Internal Affairs realizes that they're all in trouble if The Rock starts talking like this in front of anyone else. I mean, the way he is talking with such confidence about how people with arrest records, to use The Rock's words, tuck it in there to hide the weed, would lead one to think that The Rock is on a mission to find these tucked drugs. In a case like this, a lawyer should be able to find out whether an Internal Affairs interview was conducted and demand access to a transcript, if not a recording. Internal Affairs is trying to help The Rock. They are trying to give him a chance to be apologetic, to show that he's learned from his mistakes. But The Rock, unfortunately for him, is not intelligent enough to pick up on it, and little by little, even his fellow cops working for Internal Affairs seem to begin to strongly dislike him when they realize just how far he is from being able to reason with them and just how psychotic he might be.
In order to feel it, in order to possibly locate something that I believed, based on my experiences, was there, and it wasn't, and that's when I used the blade in my hand to do his rear end, because that's oftentimes where they hide it also. Those two spots are very common, and if you look at my arrest record, you're going to see, when people clench, when they clench their buttocks, they're clenching for a reason. You just don't do that. When they clench it, they may be hiding stuff there. I've had arrests where things have been hidden there. I've had arrests where things have been hidden, in that private area in front. And that's just based on my experiences as a street level cop in the city of Cocoa, in my beat, which is Zone 1, which is heavily influenced with narcotics possessions and dealings.
Did you stick your finger in his rectum when you were searching?
No, sir.
Okay. Yes, Al.
Have you ever had contact with Mr. Marvin prior to that incident?
Yes, I have.
What was that incident?
Traffic stop.
Did you issue him a ticket?
No.
Okay. So it was just a traffic stop?
It was a traffic stop on Pineda Street. I would say maybe a month or two prior to this. When you watch my video, we reference it because he says, "I remember you," and it took me a minute, and then I remembered him. I pulled him over. I believe it was a tag light. Approached the car, smelled the weed. No, officer. I asked him, "Do you have anything illegal inside the vehicle?" Same MO. No. He didn't give me as much of a problem as he did this time. Even though I still got him out of the car, I patted him down. I searched the exterior part of his pockets, and I wasn't, based on that, because of the friendliness, I gave him a verbal warning.
This goes back to my main point from part 1, that cops target the most vulnerable in society. In our society, black men with arrest records are by far the most vulnerable to police misconduct, and as you can see here, in small towns and cities, are often targeted repeatedly by the same corrupt cops. The Rock had stopped this person before, very recently, and didn't find any drugs, but when he stopped him a second time, he wasn't willing to let him go without getting an arrest for something.
So did you go to that extent that time as you did on this one?
No, I didn't.
What was the difference?
The difference was this was my second encounter. The marijuana smell was much stronger on his person this time, as opposed to my first encounter with him, where I felt like the smell was coming from inside the vehicle a little bit more that time. And I did search the vehicle, not an extensive search like we did this one. It was more, I would say the stop was probably a quarter, if not the half or maybe a quarter of the time that this one was. It wasn't a long investigation at all.
So you feel that the search you conducted on Mr. Passawi was just, in your mind, looking for narcotics?
Based on the totality of the circumstances, I'm going to say I went a little too far.
Okay. A little too far, or?
Yeah, I believe I searching him. I didn't, you know, when I look at it, it's marijuana. Really, I mean, to dig like that for marijuana. No, there doesn't have to be a reason for that.
Well, and it's a good reason to bring up the other one. I'm going to move to that traffic stop now where you stopped the young man with the marijuana. Mm-hmm. We watched the video of that. And in that video, you ask him about the marijuana, mm-hmm. and he actually comes up with it and hands it to you. Mm-hmm. You're willing to throw, or what'd you do with that marijuana?
It was discarded.
How?
I threw it out.
Just in the garbage?
In a dumpster.
Okay. So why didn't you just drop that into evidence?
I should have.
Destroy. Okay.
I never got around to it. I should have.
So it's not a big deal on that traffic stop with the kid, the marijuana. Why did it go to such an extreme with Mr. Passaway with marijuana?
So right here, Internal Affairs references another traffic stop that came up while they investigated The Rock for this incident. In this other traffic stop, a younger driver was pulled over. When The Rock approached his vehicle, he told the driver he smelled weed. He also told the driver that if he was honest, he would let him go. In response, the driver, who ended up actually having weed in the car, turned it over to The Rock.
2 things. 1, never trust a cop when he says things will be better for you if you are just honest. I am not telling you to lie to the cops. I am telling you to simply say nothing. When cops say it will be easier for you if you are honest, they are just hoping you will accidentally say something to incriminate yourself or allow them to arrest you without doing any work. So the kid, from this other story that they are referencing, did the wrong thing, even though it appears to have worked out for him that one time. In most cases, doing that would have made his situation significantly more difficult. 2, The Rock has a long history and record of not turning seized drugs into evidence. I suspect that he lied again when he said he threw it in a dumpster.
Because with the kid on that stop, he was upfront and honest. And if you look at, I don't arrest everybody that I come across with drugs. And I'll tell them, if you watch a lot of my videos when I deal with these people, if you're upfront and you're honest with me, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to let you go with the verbal warning. It's when you, and I'll say this, it's when you make me work. It's when I've had contact with you before and I've arrested you for things, or, you know, I have an indication of you may be hiding something or you're in possession of something and you're being dishonest. That's when I look to pursue it a little farther, as opposed to honesty and being straight with me. Making my job a little easier,
right? So
I can get those drugs off the street.
No, and I get it. Everybody says that, but I mean, you met with people lie to you all the time. That's what they do. They lie to the police.
That's one of the hardest things for me to deal with is people lying to me.
Right.
Because I take it a little too personally, and that's something I have to do a better job with. And I've said that before, and I still say it, and that's just something I got to work on.
Though he's told several blatant lies already, make no mistake about it, The Rock takes it really personally and gets really upset when people lie to him.
Okay. So back to the traffic stop with Officer Rhodes. How many times have you conducted a traffic stop in that same manner, thought the drugs were there or smelled the drugs were there, and conducted the same type of search?
You referring to initially or the latter search?
The latter search. I mean, basically the strip search, if you will. Because Officer Baez said he's been with you 4 times when you've done that, and he actually didn't even know it was a violation of policy until this incident is what he testified to.
Never take a cop's word for anything during a traffic stop or an arrest. Stick to your prepared responses and training. Even if you know the cops are acting beyond the bounds of law, it is better to focus on successfully recording the interaction and then immediately finding a lawyer than it is to argue with them. As you heard, The Rock's current partner was with him on 4 separate occasions, that he admits to, in which he claims The Rock did the same thing to someone else.
In addition, both officers claim they had no idea it was against the policy to search someone this way. This is most likely just another lie. I'd imagine that both officers had to know that this behavior was not only against policy and abusive, but also illegal. However, even if the officers had made an honest attempt to read their police handbooks and follow the rules to the best of their ability, it is still likely that most cops do not read proficiently enough to understand or get through the policy handbook. This is more reason to bring a lawsuit, and this is also evidence that will help you increase your settlement because it indicates that the police department itself has been knowingly allowing this behavior or that they have negligent hiring practices.
So, did you do it those 4 times or more than 4 times?
All circumstances are different. It's not going to happen the same every time. You know, well, one of them that Baez was on with me is, you know, I brought the guy out of the car, went to searching him. I did the blade in my hand in his buttocks. He clinched up. He clinched hard. And then he started yelling and shouting. And then what I felt when I did the hand of my blade was something hard, and a hard object in there. And sure enough, he had a big bag of big bag of crack. I think it was maybe 15, 20 grams of crack cocaine. Passenger had the same exact thing. And I found that later. He had a warrant. And I found that later at the PD. He did the same exact thing. And he had time. So the circumstances are always different. Do they have time to do it? You know, what's his arrest record like? You know, how is he acting? These are all things that as a street level cop I've learned to realize and understand. And that's how their behavior and their actions is how I do my job. I go off of them.
But policy has restrictions on when you can do that and when you can't, not just what the atmosphere is at the time.
Okay.
On that note, were you aware of the agency's policy as it's written?
Probably not as clear cut as I should have been.
Did you read it? Because you signed for it. You signed for the policy back in 2017 for that specific policy with searches.
We agree, it's there, he signed off on it.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, July 10th, 2017. And are you aware of what the policy said in regards to strip searches is basically what you conducted?
I am now. It was my impression at the time it wasn't a strip search. When I think of strip search, I think of bringing him back to the PD, taking his clothes off when something is too far from my grasp. You know, if they hide something, it's not going to be too far from my grasp right away. And at the same time, you got to think about, well, if they put it in their anal cavity like that and it gets lodged up in there, it could be a health issue. You know?
Well, that's why we have procedures and policy for things like that. I mean, it goes on to cavity searches if we're concerned about something like that. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, the policy is there to protect you and the citizens of illegal searches. Okay. And perfectly in this situation, I get that other people, there was drugs found on him, but there was no drugs found on him.
But it wasn't a problem then. Why is it a problem now? Because I didn't find anything and because he made a complaint on me?
Well, it's because it's a violation of law and policy.
Then why wasn't this addressed when that was going on?
I don't know why it was addressed. I mean, this is the first that we've gotten a complaint about it.
Okay.
And, you know, put yourself in that. If that was your son or your daughter and they just dropped off a friend who smoked marijuana in the car, and an officer pulls up and they smell the marijuana and they're thinking what you're thinking, and they pull him out and they search him the way you searched him in a parking lot with people walking around, how do you think you'd feel about the officer doing that to your child?
Well, this isn't my child. This wasn't, you know, this wasn't an upstanding citizen. This was a guy that smokes weed, that gets arrested for crack cocaine possession, that goes to jail, that comes and wants to get a good cop off the street and file a complaint. That's what this guy is. That's what this kind of person is.
The Rock says, This guy's not an upstanding citizen. He's someone who smokes weed, who gets arrested for crack possession, who goes to jail, and then gets out and wants to get a good cop off the street. That's who this person is.
Just so we're clear, to everyone watching, the person Rock is describing doesn't exist. Never in history did anyone say, I just got out of jail and now I'm hoping to get a good cop off the street. No one has ever thought like that.
Yeah, but we can't take somebody's past and use it against them for anything future. I mean, what if this guy has, you know, he found Jesus and he's come clean and he's trying to get his life
So why does
straight.
he smell like weed now?
Maybe somebody was in the car.
Why didn't he say that? Did he say that during
Well,
the
he doesn't have to
investigation?
say it.
Well, then why wouldn't he dispel my fear? That, officer,
He doesn't have
I just
to
dropped
say
my
it.
friend off. He was just smoking weed. Maybe it wouldn't.
But he doesn't have to tell you that. Do you know what the Fifth Amendment is?
The Internal Affairs Unit is right here. Not only did the victim not have to tell The Rock anything, I will add to what they said and include, he also should not tell The Rock anything. If a cop tells you he smells weed coming from your vehicle, you can tell him you don't have any weed, but you are under no obligation to provide any explanation for the smell the officer says he notices. The best thing to do in this situation, as the Internal Affairs officers already have expressed, would be if the victim exercised his lawful right to remain silent.
Do you know what that is? It's a right to not incriminate yourself. So during a traffic stop, I don't have to say a word to you.
Okay, well, he was saying how it was the black and mild smelling.
He didn't have to, what I'm saying is he didn't have to say a word.
Okay.
He didn't even have to talk to you. Here's my license, and that's the extent of it.
Okay.
And then you have to investigate the call.
And I did investigate it.
Right, but you're investigating it. You just testified that you investigated based on his past. You felt like it was
wasn't just
worth...
his past. It was everything going on. It wasn't just his past. I told you. It's the totality of the circumstance. It's not just people's past. It's their actions and behaviors while I'm on scene with them, during my contact with them, is how I go about my job. And I felt strongly that it was hidden inside his pants, somewhere and concealed, either under his private area or concealed in his buttocks. Based on my experiences as a cop here. That's where they hide the drugs, and that's why I did what I did.
And you feel it's justified to do that type of search to get the drugs?
For marijuana, no. For the smell of marijuana, no. Did I do too much? Was I trying to do too much because of maybe I didn't want this guy getting away with this? Yeah.
So what if you found crack in his ass? Is it justified?
The Internal Affairs officers asked The Rock if his search would have been justified if instead of looking for weed, he had actually successfully found crack. I think Internal Affairs is asking The Rock the wrong questions, or at least phrasing them the wrong way. The word justified is confusing The Rock, because the description probably coming to his head when he thinks of illegally searching for crack in someone's butt is worth it. As is already apparent from his history, The Rock thinks of it more in terms of, was the search worth it? Not, was the search justified? Or put differently, did I find the thing I wanted most?
If I found crack?
Yeah. Do you feel like it's justified for you to conduct that search if it was more than marijuana?
How is that I don't understand how using the blade of my hand on his butt, I don't understand how that's a search.
Well, take the blade out. You stuck your hand in his private area,
right, and I told you that's where they hide it.
That's a violation of your...
Okay, so I admit to a violation.
Well, what I'm trying to get is your peace of mind when it comes to searching people, whether you think it's right or wrong, and if there's a line you cross. I think you see the means justify the ends if you are able to get the narcotics or the gun or whatever it is at the time. Mm-hmm. But there's laws that protect people in this country that prevent you from allowing you to do that without probable cause.
I feel like I had probable cause.
Just because you smelled marijuana.
Reasonable suspicion on his behavior, on his actions, his attitude.
But you can't go off of that.
That's what I went off of.
You smelled marijuana.
Yes.
And based on that marijuana smell, you felt like it was justified to strip search him in a parking lot.
I do not feel like I strip searched him.
Well, per our policy you did. And actually our policy mimics state statute. So that same wording in our policy is taken straight from state statute.
Okay. I don't see how checking underneath his private area and then using the blade of my hand on his buttocks, I don't understand how that's a strip search. I don't.
Because it's not that you felt a gun and you were trying to do it for officer safety. You're smelling marijuana.
I was looking for marijuana.
And it wasn't there.
Right. It wasn't there.
Right. So everything you did to this guy was not just. Go ahead, Al.
At the time that you conducted this search or anything similar to it, did you understand your agency's policy, which mirrors Florida state statute?
No, sir.
When do you feel that it's justified to search a person for whatever reason?
When you're arresting him?
So that's perfect on this one. He wasn't even arrested.
Right.
That's where our policy starts.
Right.
Starts
Searching. What do you talk? Do you mean strip search?
I'm talking about any search. You're saying you're able to, or you feel you're justified in searching anyone if you think you have enough to do it, whether it be you smell it, their attitude, or their past history.
I don't feel like that was a full-blown search.
Well, what's missing?
I got news for you. I think it was still tucked. I still think it was still tucked away, and I just couldn't feel it.
What? That has to be a lie, or The Rock is straight psycho. He thinks the weed is tucked that far up the victim's butt, and he can still smell it as he walks around outdoors. As you can already hear from the tone of his voice, the internal affairs officer leading this interrogation is tired of the crazy talk, cannot believe his ears, and is likely about to blow a fuse. Now it seems to him like The Rock is putting everybody's job in jeopardy.
If you really want to know the truth. But I wasn't trying to go any further than I did.
I think you went pretty far. I think if there was anything in there, especially the amount you're smelling.
No, I didn't. The video, yeah, you can look at the video all day long. I know what happened. I know what happened there because I was there. And you guys can look at the video all day long and say this and say that. I know what truly happened. Was that justified? I feel like it was. And it may not meet the mold of the policy here, but I feel like it was. And I've made arrests and I've found drugs. I found a lot of drugs doing that same method.
Do you know this gentleman could file a federal lawsuit against you for unlawful search and seizure? Are you aware of that?
I mean, you could sue anybody for anything these days, so.
Well,
if he feels like he really needs to.
Well, I don't know.
Which, according to you, he hasn't done anything, and a lot of people are all talk, right?
I get it. I'm just making you aware of that.
He's just trying to get a good cop off the street, and you guys are entertaining it. At the end of the day, that's what it is.
Well, I have to entertain every complaint. And to be honest with you...
That's why I even told him to go and file a complaint.
Right.
That's why Byers told him, if you have a complaint, go file it. But if you listen to the video, he consents to whatever I'm going to do. Just get it over with so I can leave. If you listen to it, just go ahead.
But that doesn't...
We addressed this very moment in part 1. After The Rock searches the victim's pants for the first time and then handcuffs him, and then indicates to the victim that he may have to search his private areas and rectum, the victim, out of frustration and anger and a feeling of helplessness, throws his hands up and says, "Go ahead and do what you're gonna do," just to get this nightmare situation over with. The Rock, in his interview with Internal Affairs, as you just heard, uses the victim's statement under duress and interprets it as consent to search wherever he wants. This is why we repeatedly stress that you use the phrase, "I do not consent to a search of my vehicle or my person." It cannot be misinterpreted, and once you say that, if a cop does search your vehicle or person, it is therefore unconstitutional, unless, of course, he can prove legitimate probable cause for doing so, which he did not have here.
Make it okay.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right. I'm not going to argue with you.
Well, I'm just trying to get your state of mind at the time.
My state of mind was he was hiding something, and this was probably the second time. And based on his history, based on his actions that day, based on the totality of the circumstance of everything going on, the heavy smell of weed that was inside the car, we took him out, then it was coming from him. I felt like it was concealed on his person based on my experiences in the past with the arrests that I've made and the contact that I've had with people.
Okay. How come you didn't complete a report on that call, that you searched him and backed up Officer Rhodes or anything?
I don't think Officer Rhodes even wrote a report.
No, he didn't. He gave him a ticket.
Okay. You don't write reports on just tickets, right?
Well, it was a little bit more than just a ticket. I mean, that's why we're here, are we not?
It was just a ticket, then it became a complaint, and then you guys put me on suspension. So I don't know when I was supposed to do a report.
Well,
And then even Sergeant Moon said this was going to be nothing.
Why would he
So
say
it's
that?
gonna be- I don't know. You ask him.
Okay. All
He
right.
said he was going to take. He didn't know how he was going to explain it, but I said, "Is this going to be? You think this is going to be an IA?" He said, "I don't think so."
Well, he testified that he spoke to you in the past about going past or going up to the line and going past it.
And yeah,
And he actually talked about this after
we had a
the.
conversation
Okay, so.
about not just this, about everything going on.
Right.
You know, because I feel like he was maybe concerned about what might be going on in my personal life and things like that, how it may be affecting my job. And yeah, things weigh on me. This really had nothing to do with, this was Rock, the police officer, trying to get drugs off the streets and trying to clean up the streets. That's what this was.
I get that, and that's what we should do. But there's rules and regulations and policies and laws that we have to follow to get there.
I agree with you.
And unfortunately, the bad guy doesn't have to follow those policies. So
I agree with you.
that's why they put him in the places where they know you can't or shouldn't go. So I mean, that's the struggles we have every day.
Let's move.
So after you were suspended, they took your vehicle, your patrol vehicle, and Lieutenant Delator did a search of your vehicle to inventory. And in the car, you saw the photos. There was.
Do it by each one.
So I'll just. Well, the first one is the bullets or rounds in the door. The second one is just shown.
You want a response on that?
Those rounds are for my firearm.
Okay, so they're just extra ammo?
Yes.
Okay. And the second one is just a cup in the console, and I think he's taking it for
Can you drink
an
up?
overall.
Look at the picture of this thing.
An overall.
That's an air freshener cup. What's her name? One of the girls gave it to me in dispatch. It's for air fresheners to make your car smell better.
Okay, so he's just taking an overall shot of your car.
Right. That's what that is.
And that's the interior of your patrol
Well, it
car.
appears so.
Okay. And under that cup, he found some money and a plastic bag that appears to be, cocaine or meth or something.
Yeah, it was.
What was it?
It was probably cocaine.
Do you remember where you got it
Yeah,
from?
I got it from Provost Park. Me and Houchins checked out with the group at Provost Park, about 4 or 5 of them, and one of them had a gun on him, and we were looking around, and on the ground, standing right next to another guy, was 3 bags of that crack.
So you just picked it up?
Yeah, I had to do it. I tried. I talked to the guy, interviewed the guy. He wasn't claiming ownership of it, even though I knew it was his. So I just let him go, and I was going to drop that in evidence. I just never got around to it.
Many cops plant drugs. Many cops also use drugs. As you can see, when he is able to, Rock keeps the cocaine he finds for himself.
I should have.
What happened to the other 2 bags?
There's one there.
That's it.
Oh, then the other 2 were discarded.
And then this picture is between the seat and the back shield, I guess, between the driver's seat and between that and the back seat is crack cocaine in a plastic baggie.
Okay.
Where did this come from?
Honestly, I don't even. I mean that I don't even know that was there. To be honest.
Okay.
Where it was behind my seat.
It's behind the passenger seat.
So I'm in the driver's seat. He's in the passenger seat. It's here.
Yeah,
It's
behind.
behind you.
Between the
So it could
shield.
have fell, or it could have
Between the shield,
been.
yeah.
How long could it have been there? It could have been there for a while.
Yeah, I don't know how long.
Right. I don't know.
Okay.
So the question I would ask you is, did you ever search that area and see?
No.
that?
The large plastic bag contains several white rock substance under the passenger seat. So that's where that was, passenger seat. Under the passenger seat.
Okay.
And in the trunk was a plastic bag with a $10 bill and a credit card.
I think that was a counterfeit bill, and that was maybe a credit card that I just found on the ground. It should have been dropped in evidence.
So and also, speaking of the evidence, in your mailbox was located driver's license.
Yeah, that stuff all had to go back to the DHSMV. I just hadn't placed it in evidence yet.
And the tag.
Correct. All 3.
But these was from 2018 cases.
Yeah, it was sitting in my, I had a bunch of stuff in my mailbox that I had to clean out.
Do you drop any evidence that,
I drop plenty of evidence. Yes, I always drop evidence, most of the time.
so, do you drop evidence that isn't a criminal case? You just, it kind of seems like when it's not a criminal case or you have charges pending, that you don't really worry about
When I
dropping
take
in
it as
evidence.
found property, if I drop it in evidence, I drop it. If I don't, then I'll discard it. But those occasions are the only times that I haven't dropped it in the property is those times, which is why they were found.
Right. But don't you feel like evidence is a huge part of what we do and to protect the chain of custody and I mean, you got to testify for this stuff in court. So if I was a defense attorney and I got a hold of this, I'd say, Officer Contardi, do you have a habit of not worrying about evidence and leaving it in your car?
It's not a habit. It's not a habit. It's just, you know, I do a lot of things. I respond to a lot of calls for service. I write a lot of reports.
When Internal Affairs searched the Rock's car, they found so many baggies of crack and cocaine that hadn't been turned into evidence that the Rock couldn't even remember where he had left them in his car or that they were even there in the first place. As an Internal Affairs officer says on camera, a skilled defense attorney could use this information to get a variety of cases dismissed.
I don't always get around to dropping found property.
So it's just the found property?
It's all found property.
Okay. And you don't know where the crack was? Where you got it, the bag under the passenger?
No, sir. I mean, that could have been something I got found property and it fell there and I forgot about it.
And these were death cases that you worked that I guess you responded to?
Yeah, those were my investigations.
Okay. Here. This incident was an arrest with Jamal Travis with the gun.
Travis Jones, yeah.
Travis Jones. The state non-prosted because they basically said they wouldn't survive a motion to suppress because there was no body cam video. Is there a reason why you didn't have your body cam?
My battery was dead.
Okay.
I don't understand how they could just... So because there's no video?
They don't state why. What was the reasons? But
They said there's no video. That was the reason, no video.
Well, the court will find issues with the detention, and then it says there is no body cam video of it. So I don't know if it's just based on the body cam or something else.
Gotcha.
They didn't explain.
But your explanation is the battery was dead and you remember?
I believe the battery was dead.
Okay, pay attention to that moment. This is why we're always stressing the importance of outfitting your cars with audio-video cameras. Internal Affairs brings up another stop that The Rock was involved in. In this other stop, The Rock arrested someone, but the state ultimately dropped the charges because there was no body camera footage of the arrest. The Rock's excuse is that his body camera was dead. This is clearly a lie, but I want you to understand that this is a lie that cops frequently use when they don't want their behavior or their actions to be caught on camera. Also, cops may turn their body cameras off when they notice that a victim has no means of filming their actions himself. The cop's objective is to create a situation where it's their word against yours, because in those situations, the jury usually gives the cop the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. And this was the traffic stop with the marijuana we already covered.
Right.
I know you said you threw out the marijuana, but you even put on your call that you found property. Mm-hmm. So was your intentions to drop the marijuana?
My intentions were to drop it, yes.
Okay, but
I just never got around. It was early in the shift. I should have, but I got to the station and there were, I got caught up in my reports, and then you start talking with people, and then it's the end of the shift, and I went home, and here we go. I just tossed it.
okay. Officer Moon said when you had your taser download every month or yearly or quarterly, they do taser downloads to get the report. She stated that when she did your taser download, you didn't have any cartridges in your taser. You were out of cartridges, basically. You had an empty taser, and you were a little shocked that there was no cartridges in there.
No, I think there was one missing.
Okay, but I couldn't find any usages for a taser.
Yeah.
Do you remember what happened with that?
I think maybe just one dropped out.
Okay. Okay.
I was weirded out that there was only one in there.
Right. Yeah.
Which had to have been recent, because I mean, I check the thing once every week.
Well, and that's why I said I looked
Spark
at
test.
your response to resistance, and
Yeah.
I didn't see any dealing with a
I'll do the
taser.
spark test once a week, so it had to have been fairly recent that I might have lost one.
Okay. And
I want you to pay close attention to what Internal Affairs says next, because this is a common way that cops suppress evidence to get away with misconduct or illegal searches. Internal Affairs says that upon review, it was found that 90% of the Rock's body camera footage was improperly labeled, improperly dated, improperly stored, or improperly backed up. This is how cops, quote-unquote, lose footage before it can be used against them in court. This is also why we repeatedly stress the importance of having your own filming capabilities.
you were hired back in, what, 2012 initially?
I was hired initially in 2012.
Okay, so when I looked at your body cam videos, they're all there every day, labeled, CR numbers, everything. You came back in April of 2017. 90% of your body cam videos are not labeled, they're not scheduled for evidence. You can see a significant difference from the time you left and then the time you came back. Didn't know if there was anything significant about that.
I think when I came back, I started doing a lot more. I started writing more reports. I started arresting more people, and it was, to keep up with everything is difficult. It's a challenge for me because don't only have this job. I got things going on at home too. So I don't always get around to doing things that I should, and sometimes it takes me a little longer to go through the videos, to sit there and watch all my videos, because talk to Sergeant Moon, talk to Sergeant Rush and Corporal Toulier. I respond to almost every call we have, either as a primary or a backup. I try to go and assist my guys.
No, I get it.
Right, so I have a lot
But then
of
something's
videos.
got to give.
Yeah, I got to do a better job of keeping up with that. I don't have it on my phone. I have an old phone that I can't even get this evidence.com on. So every time I got to sit there and go through all and watch them all, and then go back and find the CR number. So if you don't keep up with it every night you got to do it. If you don't do it, then one night becomes two, and then you look at how many you have for two. Oh, I got 55 videos I gotta watch, and then you get through a quarter of them, and then you can't really do anymore.
Because if I asked you to find a video right now on a specific call, you're not doing it without looking at every video.
That's what I mean. So to get.
That's why he asked you about the videos, through me to look at the videos.
And I did look at the videos, and there was nothing.
The one from Provost Park?
No, I didn't see that one. But he asked me to look a day before, the day of, and the day after.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think, because, let's see, that was, you talking about the stop. When was the stop? When was that? The marijuana?
With the marijuana?
Yeah, when was that?
That was
Because I feel like I got those
March 12th.
Those 3 bags of cocaine.
Oh no, you're talking about the
couldn't have been
kid.
March 12th.
You're talking about the marijuana.
Yeah,
stuff.
the one with the white kid. Well, whatever. But I think I got those bags of cocaine that week on Provost Park, and I didn't drop the property, so to write the report.
This is February 13th.
Okay, it's February, and it was a missing report that I didn't do.
Right. Actually, when you were on suspension, Sergeant Moon came to me.
I got the email before you guys cut off my email. I got the email, and I called Penny and I said, "Listen, I'm out right now, but I know that report's going to be missing. And it's something I got to do. It's a found property report."
Right. And it wouldn't have been a problem until I couldn't find the found property.
Right.
I mean,
It is clear to everyone listening to this interrogation that The Rock has done no police work. The Rock's defense is that he's a super cop, that he does so much important police work and illegal stuff that he doesn't have time to write reports. He doesn't have time to return seized drugs to evidence. He says he's so busy doing police stuff, he just doesn't have time to turn on his body camera or save the body camera footage he does have. The Rock argues that he is such a good cop that he takes the drugs home so that no one else gets them, but then he always forgets to turn them into evidence because he is busy attending to more urgent police work. There isn't anything new in the rest of the video. The Rock just continues to tell blatant lie after blatant lie and offer incoherent excuses for his own suspicious behavior regarding his treatment of evidence, particularly drug evidence. I will let the video play out just so you can see how cops act when confronted with evidence against them. You may find some other helpful information from watching the rest of the interrogation, so I'll just let it play out from here on.
Okay. I mean, I get your answers on why you're not doing the paperwork and dropping the evidence.
No,
but
there's no justification.
Right.
I got to do the paperwork. I got to drop the evidence. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
All right. You have anything you want to add?
Do you understand at this point in time, after reviewing all of this today, the proper procedures that you must adhere to as it applies to searches of
To
persons?
keep my job, yes.
Yes.
To keep my job, yes. I understand that now. To keep my job. I like this job. I feel like I help the community. Everybody out here knows who I am.
I know. I mean, you're a proactive officer. I get it.
And it's just not being about proactive. It's about, people, and this is what gets me in trouble. It's the fact that, I care. It's the fact that I care, and I'm not a robot. And I'm never going to be a robot. Where you just go out, oh, sorry, ma'am, I can't help you. Or you need the number of the DV shelter? I don't know, look it up on Google. I go a little farther. It's not just the arrest that I make. A lot of people, know who I am because of the work that I do. Is I go farther than most of these cops. I care a little bit more. And Commander, that gets me in trouble too. Is because I care.
Well, I could see that. But as long as you can do that, you can be that guy and be that helpful. And also stay within the boundary and be proactive and get the drugs and get the guns off the street.
I agree with you, and I have to do a better job of evaluating the situation and ask myself, is it worth it?
Right, you might not get them today.
Is it worth it going and getting a little marijuana that guy might be hiding from me? But it wasn't about the marijuana. It's the fact that he was lying to me. And I knew he wasn't. This was the second time he was. And I didn't want him getting away.
That's what they do.
That's what they can do.
They lie to us. That's their job. Our job.
And it's hard for me working in this city for as long as I have. I'm not a Vieira cop. I've been working Zone 1 and Zone 2. I don't want to work anywhere else. I don't want to go and hide in Zone 3.
No, I
Or
get
go
it.
to Walmart and make the theft arrests and sit there all day like some of the guys do. I'm in the thick of things. I'm driving around Peachtree Street, Prospect Ave, Fern Ave, Fisk Boulevard. That's my loop, and I do that probably 100 times a shift. And the people that I deal with, they're not going to be the upstanding citizens that most of these cops deal with. I'm not going to go and hide. I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to go in and do my job and do what I feel like I need to do as a good cop here and make a difference. And it's probably going to jam me up if I don't do everything by the book. And that's something that I need to do a better job.
The worst part of this job is the paperwork.
Knowing policy. Knowing that I got, okay, if someone runs a stop sign, well, I got 50 videos I got to label. So what am I going to do? You know what I've been doing in the past? I've been stopping that guy. And you know what? I've been getting a gun, or I've been getting drugs. And guess what? Those 50 videos, the next morning, turn into 100 videos that I haven't labeled. But I got that arrest. I'm feeding the beast.
But what you're doing is not... You're getting to the arrest part, and they're not doing anything.
Right,
So, I mean, yeah, you got a gun off the street, is what you said. However, the guy's on the street now. Maybe he wouldn't have been on the street if you had the video, if you had a good search, or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, it's all for nothing because you're getting that gun off, but they're turning around. I know
exactly what you're saying, but this is one instance. If you talk to Phil Archer, he'll tell you everything you need to know about me. I think he thinks I do a good job. Have you talked to Phil Archer?
No, but I think if he watched that
Or not
video...
Phil Archer. Who am I thinking of?
Phil Williams.
Phil Williams.
Yeah.
Right.
No, he speaks highly of me. We talk.
But I think if he'd see that video, he'd have issues with
Rock,
it.
what the hell are you doing?
Right.
You're doing too much. Rock, you're doing too much. And I agree, I'm doing too much. I don't need to do all that. Maybe I should just need to respond to my calls for service. Maybe I don't have to be proactive anymore.
Or instead of those 2 late calls that you take time to do the paperwork and to label the videos. Those are they're not the exciting things of the job. However, it's the housekeeping that we need to do.
It's the policy of the job.
Right.
It's how you keep your job. You have to do
Right.
the little things. And I've just been doing, in my mind, the things that are more important than the little things. But the little things are just as important in keeping your job here. And that was...
If not more, like the evidence to me is...
Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're... That's what your whole job is about, is protect the evidence and to testify about it.
It was laziness, you know. It was, you know, it wasn't. It's not what good cops do. And I feel like I'm a good cop, and I need to do a better job of taking care of the little technicality policy things, you know. So this doesn't happen. Like you said, if I wasn't, you know, if I got around to dropping that weed, that would have never came up.
All right.
You know. So it's the little things that are more important.
He came to me and said he didn't have a call, and he said it was a traffic stop. I said, probably not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about it until I actually had to watch it and make sure it wasn't a big deal, and then it became a big deal.
Yeah.
And then it was the rabbit hole. I turn around and there's stuff in your mailbox. Shouldn't be there. I mean, you got a guy, brother came from out of state because he died. You think he'd rather have that driver's license?
Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, that's what it is. It's sitting in your box still. We do an inventory in your car, and there's all this drugs in there. I mean, those are the things that ruin cops on the stand. Mm-hmm. It's because of the lack of integrity when it comes to protecting the evidence and dropping it into evidence.
And organized.
Right.
But you asked my wife, I'm not a very organized person. And that's another thing that I got to work on, is I'm not really organized. Look at my trunk, for crying out loud. I just place things, you know, so within reach. So I don't have to dig for it, so I know exactly where it is. And, you know, my ASP, my spray, my tint meter, my ticket writer, or the ticket book, I know where all that, the statute book, I know where it is. It may be messy, but I know where it's at. You know, and I knew those things were in there. I just had to take care of it, and I didn't. I had to take care of it, and I didn't. That's the bottom line. So.
Okay. Al, you got anything to add?
No, I think we covered all the ground.
All right, raise your right hand for me. You swear the statement just provided is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you for tuning in to another Unlawful Arrest Prevention video. You can always reach out to us at uap@unlawfularrestprevention.org if you have an attorney to refer to us, or if you need help finding representation in your state, or if you would just like to submit a video for us to analyze.
I'm in this shit to win and not get tricked by no cave bitch. At the end of the day, we free whole towns from enslavement. BGFO, or they could be with the nation. Change a nigga whole life with a single conversation. 3 heroic deeds or you a bitch, that's on babies. 3 heroic deeds or you a man-shaped lady. I put you on the list, raised you up and gave you training. I said 3 heroic deeds is the way you should repay me.